Witnessing an act of humiliation against his maid by his own wife, the millionaire makes a bold move. His unexpected stand shakes the household and challenges the status quo. And if you cherish your family and love stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and avoid 10 years of bad luck. The crystal chandeliers cast a bright glow over the marble floors of the Carter Mansion in Beverly Hills. 200 of Los Angeles' most influential people mingled throughout the grand ballroom, their expensive perfumes mixing with the aroma of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Maya moved efficiently between the guests, her black uniform pristine as she balanced a silver tray of champagne flutes. Victoria Carter stood at the center of attention, her designer dress worth more than Maya's yearly salary. She commanded the room with practiced ease, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing as she addressed her social circle. Ethan Carter observed from across the room, sipping his scotch while half listening to a conversation about market futures. The incident began when Maya approached Victoria's group with fresh champagne. As she offered the tray, a guest accidentally bumped her arm. A single drop of champagne landed on Victoria's sleeve. "You stupid girl." Victoria's voice cut through the party's ambient noise. The surrounding conversations died immediately. "Look what you've done to my Valentino." Maya started to apologize, but Victoria wasn't finished. "This is exactly why people like you shouldn't be allowed to serve at these functions. You clearly don't understand the value of anything here." The guests around Victoria shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded in agreement, while others looked away, pretending not to hear the racist undertones in Victoria's words. "Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry. I'll get something to clean it right away," Maya said, maintaining her composure despite the public humiliation. "Don't bother. You'll probably just make it worse. This is what happens when you hire people to fill quotas instead of based on actual qualifications." Victoria's words dripped with contempt. Across the room, Ethan's grip tightened around his glass. He watched as Maya's shoulders stiffened, her face struggling to maintain its professional mask. The other servers pretended to be busy, avoiding eye contact with their colleague. "In fact," Victoria continued, her voice rising to ensure everyone could hear, "why don't you just go back to whatever neighborhood you came from? I'm sure there are plenty of fast food restaurants hiring." The silence in the room became deafening. Maya stood frozen, the tray trembling slightly in her hands. A few guests whispered behind their hands, while others began to edge away from the scene. After the party, Ethan found Victoria in their private suite. The confrontation that followed shook the walls of the mansion. What the hell was that display downstairs? Ethan's voice was low but charged with anger. Victoria lazily removed her earrings, glancing at him through the mirror. "Oh, please, don't be so dramatic." She needed to be put in her place. Put in her place? Ethan's face reddened. "She's been nothing but professional since the day we hired her. You humiliated her in front of everyone." "Darling," Victoria laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. "You can't possibly be serious. She's the help. Since when do you care about the help's feelings?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping even lower. "You will apologize to her. Now." Victoria turned to face him, her perfectly painted lips curling into a sneer. "I will do no such thing." "Really, Ethan, this righteous anger doesn't suit you. What would your board members think?" Something snapped in Ethan at that moment. The carefully maintained facade of their marriage crumbled before his eyes. Without hesitation, he walked to the door and called for his butler. "James, please ask Maya to come to my study, and then gather the staff. I have an announcement to make." The next few minutes unfolded like a scene from a play. In front of the remaining guests and staff, Ethan declared Victoria's immediate dismissal from the household. In the same breath, he announced Maya's promotion to personal assistant, effective immediately. Victoria's face contorted with rage, but before she could speak, Ethan raised his hand. "The security team will escort you to pack your things. Your lawyers will be contacted in the morning." The witnesses to this scene stood in stunned silence. Maya, called from the kitchen where she'd been trying to compose herself, stared at Ethan with wide eyes. The other staff members exchanged glances, unsure whether to celebrate or remain neutral. Victoria's final words as security approached rang through the foyer. "You'll regret this, Ethan." Both of you will regret this." The remaining guests quickly made their excuses and departed, eager to spread the news throughout Beverly Hills. The evening ended with Victoria being escorted to her car, Maya in shocked silence, and Ethan standing firm in his decision, unaware that this was only the beginning of a storm that would shake their world to its foundation. The morning after the party, Maya sat in Ethan's study, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The room's mahogany panels and leather-bound books had always intimidated her during cleaning duties. Now, sitting across from Ethan at his massive desk, she felt even more out of place. "I know this is sudden," Ethan said, his voice calm and measured. He pushed a contract across the desk. "But I've watched your work ethic for months. You have a degree in business administration that you never mentioned, and I've seen how you organize the household staff without any official authority." Maya stared at the contract, her mind racing. The salary figure made her breath catch. It was 5 times what she currently earned. "Mr. Carter, I appreciate this opportunity, but after last night, people will talk." "People always talk," Ethan replied, leaning forward. "What matters is competence. You've shown more of that in 6 months as a housekeeper than Victoria has in 5 years as my wife." Meanwhile, across town at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Victoria paced her suite like a caged tiger. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from social contacts, each one pretending concern while fishing for details. She ignored them all, focused instead on her laptop screen, where she tracked her suddenly frozen credit cards and bank accounts. "That bastard," she hissed, hurling a crystal glass against the wall. Her lawyer's voice on speakerphone remained steady despite her outburst. "Mrs. Carter, please remain calm. Mr. Carter's actions, while dramatic, are within his legal rights given the prenuptial agreement's morality clause. However, we can challenge." "Challenge?" Victoria cut him off. "I don't want to challenge. I want to destroy. That little upstart thinks she can take my place? I'll show them both what happens when you try to humiliate Victoria Carter." Back at the mansion, Maya began her transformation. She moved her few belongings from the staff quarters to a guest suite, trying to ignore the whispers of her former colleagues. Some, like the head chef and the groundskeeper, offered genuine congratulations. Others turned away when she passed, their resentment palpable. Her first test came that afternoon when Ethan's business partners arrived for an emergency meeting. They'd heard about Victoria's dismissal and wanted answers. Maya greeted them in the conference room, wearing a hastily purchased business suit rather than her uniform. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice steadier than she felt, "Mr. Carter will join you shortly. In the meantime, I prepared summaries of last quarter's reports for your review." She distributed tablets pre-loaded with the data, something she'd noticed they always scrambled to access during previous meetings. The partners exchanged surprised glances. One of them, Harris, on Wells, smiled slightly. "Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez," Maya supplied. "Maya Rodriguez." When Ethan entered, he found his partners already engaged with the quarterly data, making notes and discussing points Maya had highlighted. He caught her eye and nodded slightly, acknowledging her initiative. Over the next few days, Maya proved herself repeatedly. She modernized the household scheduling system, streamlined staff operations, and even identified several cost-saving measures in the mansion's management that Victoria had overlooked for years. But success came with a price. Her phone filled with messages from unknown numbers, some offering support, others containing threats and slurs. Several longtime household staff members quit, unwilling to work under their former colleague. Society magazines began running stories speculating about her relationship with Ethan, each theory more salacious than the last. Victoria watched it all from her hotel suite, gathering ammunition. She took particular note of which social leaders supported Maya's rise and which ones expressed outrage. Her own social media remained conspicuously silent, but her private messages burned with activity as she built a network of allies united in their desire to see Maya fall. "It's not just about the money," Victoria told her closest confidant over lunch. "It's about order, social order. If people like her can simply step into positions like this, what's next? The whole system could collapse." Her friend nodded sympathetically while secretly texting details of the conversation to her own social circle. As the week drew to a close, Maya sat in her new office, once Victoria's personal sitting room. reviewing staff applications to replace those who'd quit. On her desk sat an invitation to a charity gala, addressing her as Maya Rodriguez, executive assistant to Mr. Ethan Carter. The elegantly printed card represented everything she'd achieved and everything she could lose. She picked up her phone to check the latest headlines about herself, then set it down again. Instead, she opened her laptop and began preparing for tomorrow's board meeting. She had fought too hard for this opportunity to let fear hold her back now. Victoria's Instagram story appeared at precisely noon, time for maximum exposure during the lunch hour. Thoughts on workplace qualification requirements. The caption read innocently, followed by a lengthy post about the importance of proper credentials and experience in executive positions. While Maya's name wasn't mentioned, the implications were clear to her 500,000 followers. Comments flooded in immediately. Are we just handing out executive positions now? Face with rolling eyes. From maid to manager? Something's not adding up. Nail polish. Must be nice to sleep your way to the top. Victoria orchestrated her campaign with surgical precision. She reached out to influencers and society bloggers, sharing concerns about corporate standards and merit-based hiring. Each post carefully avoided direct accusations, crafting a narrative that painted Maya as an unqualified opportunist who had somehow manipulated her way into power. Maya discovered the social media assault during a budget meeting. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications as friends sent screenshots of the growing controversy. She maintained her composure, continuing to present quarterly projections to Ethan and the financial team, but her hands trembled slightly as she changed slides. After the meeting, alone in her office, Maya finally allowed herself to read through the comments. Years of experience had taught her to expect racism and classism, but the sheer volume of hate surprised her. Former colleagues shared stories, mostly fabricated, about her supposed incompetence. Society wives posted thinly veiled warnings about gold diggers and social climbers. Ethan discovered the situation when his PR team requested an emergency meeting. They presented him with a comprehensive summary of the social media storm, including potential damage to the company's reputation. This needs to be addressed, his head of communications stated, sliding a prepared statement across the desk. The carefully worded document distanced the company from both Maya and Victoria while emphasizing corporate commitment to diversity. Ethan read it once and tore it in half. Set up a press conference, he commanded. Today, and give me access to all our social media accounts. 2 hours later, Ethan stood before a crowd of reporters in the company's main lobby. Maya watched from the sidelines, despite several suggestions that she should stay home. I want to address the recent speculation about changes in my personal and professional staff. Ethan began, his voice firm. Maya Rodriguez was promoted based on merit, capability, and a proven track record of excellence. She holds a business degree from UCLA, which she earned while working full-time. In her first week as executive assistant, she has already implemented systems that have improved our operational efficiency by 20%. He continued, looking directly into the cameras. The real story here isn't about qualification. It's about the discomfort some people feel when their prejudices are challenged. I stand firmly behind my decision, and anyone who questions Ms. Rodriguez's capabilities is welcome to review her performance metrics, which we will be making public. The speech went viral within hours. Hashtag Stand With Maya began trending, though it competed with hashtag Carter Scandal and hashtag Made to Order. Corporate leaders and celebrities began weighing in, forcing people to choose sides in what was becoming a cultural moment. Maya watched it all unfold from her desk, alternating between overwhelming gratitude for Ethan's support and crushing anxiety about being in the spotlight. She hadn't wanted to become a symbol or a statement. She'd simply wanted to be recognized for her hard work. That evening, as she prepared to leave the office, she found a note from her mother tucked into her purse. Your grandfather cleaned offices at night, so I could go to college. Now his granddaughter has her own office. Hold your head high, Mijita. The note sparked something in Maya. She straightened her shoulders and opened her laptop. If she was going to be judged, let it be for her work. She spent the next several hours creating a comprehensive proposal for restructuring the household staff, including a training program for promoting other qualified employees from within. When Ethan arrived the next morning, The proposal was waiting on his desk. He read it twice, then called Maya into his office. "This is brilliant," he said simply. Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I've also prepared responses to the concerns raised by the board about Q3 projections, and I've scheduled meetings with our top 3 clients to address their questions about the recent publicity." Ethan studied her for a moment. "How are you handling all of this?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "I'm learning that other people's opinions of me are not my responsibility. My work speaks for itself." As she left his office, her phone buzzed with another notification. Victoria had just posted a new story, this time with thinly veiled accusations about corporate ethics. Maya glanced at it, then muted the notification. She had more important things to focus on. The Carter Industries boardroom buzzed with tension as Maya presented the latest quarterly projections. She stood confidently at the head of the table, her laser pointer tracking across charts that showed consistent growth despite recent controversies. Ethan sat at the opposite end, ostensibly reviewing the numbers, but his eyes kept drifting to Maya's composed demeanor. He noticed how she handled hostile questions from board members with grace, how she anticipated concerns before they were raised, and how she commanded respect without demanding it. "As you can see," Maya concluded, our restructuring initiatives have resulted in a 15% reduction in operational costs while maintaining all key performance indicators." She clicked to the final slide, revealing projections that exceeded market expectations. "Impressive," muttered Harrison Wells, one of the more skeptical board members. "Though I wonder about the sustainability of these changes." "I've prepared a detailed 3-year implementation plan," Maya responded, distributing additional folders, including contingency measures for various market scenarios. After the meeting, Ethan and Maya found themselves alone in his office, reviewing feedback. The air between them felt charged with unspoken tension. "You handled Wells perfectly," Ethan said, loosening his tie. "He's been trying to poke holes in our strategies for years." Maya smiled, then quickly looked down at her tablet. "He reminds me of my old economics professor, always looking for the flaw in the argument." Their eyes met briefly, and both quickly looked away. The attraction building between them was becoming harder to ignore, but neither dared acknowledge it. Meanwhile, at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club, Victoria held court with a carefully selected group of influencers and society wives. Her tennis outfit probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, but she had carefully cultivated a look of casual elegance. "It's not just about the company," she confided to her audience, her voice dripping with false concern. "I worry about Ethan. He's always been susceptible to manipulation. First that dreadful investment in sustainable energy, and now this." She sighed dramatically. "Some people are very good at playing the long game." Her words spread through the club like poison, reaching the ears of board members' wives and major shareholders' families. Victoria watched with satisfaction as phones came out, messages were sent, and her narrative began to take root. Back at the office, Maya felt the shift in how people regarded her. Some executives who had begun to warm to her suddenly became distant. Whispers followed her through the corridors: gold digger, social climber, opportunist. During a charity committee meeting, she overheard Claire Harrison, a prominent socialite, speaking to another board member's wife. "Well, of course she's qualified on paper, but there's more to our world than just qualifications. There's understanding, tradition, propriety." Yet not everyone sided against her. Janet Wells, Harrison's wife, publicly invited Maya to join her table at an upcoming fundraiser. Several younger executives sought her advice on modernizing their departments. The old guard might resist, but a new generation seemed ready for change. Ethan noticed the subtle warfare being waged around Maya. He found himself growing protective, inserting himself into conversations where she was being excluded, making sure she was invited to key social functions. Their professional relationship deepened as they navigated these challenges together. One evening, working late on a crucial presentation, Maya's hand brushed against Ethan's as they both reached for the same document. The contact sent electricity through both of them, and for a moment, neither moved. "Maya," Ethan began, his voice soft. "Mr. Carter," she interrupted, quickly withdrawing her hand. "I should get these reports finished." The moment passed, but its echo lingered. Both knew they were treading dangerous ground. Any hint of impropriety would validate Victoria's worst insinuations and potentially destroy everything Maya had worked for. Victoria, as if sensing the growing tension, intensified her campaign. She arranged for sources close to the situation to speak with gossip columnists about the long hours Maya and Ethan spent together. She ensured photographs of them leaving the office appeared in social media with suggestive captions. "It's just so tragic," she told her growing audience of sympathizers. "When you let someone into your home, give them opportunities, and they repay you by stealing your life." She let the implication hang in the air, knowing her words would be repeated and embellished. Maya felt the pressure mounting. Despite her growing confidence in her professional capabilities, the personal attacks were taking their toll. She caught herself checking over her shoulder in parking lots, screening calls from unknown numbers, second-guessing every interaction with Ethan. One particularly difficult day. After a series of pointed snubs at a business lunch, Maya found herself alone in her office, questioning everything. A knock at her door revealed Ethan, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, setting 1 cup on her desk. Their fingers brushed again, deliberately this time. Maya looked up at him, seeing concern in his eyes, and something more, something that both thrilled and terrified her. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she said softly, maintaining professional distance even as her heart raced. The invitation to the annual Beverly Hills Children's Hospital Gala sat on Maya's desk like a ticking bomb. Embossed in gold lettering, it read, "Mr. Ethan Carter and guest." The in-guest part had spawned a dozen gossip columns already. Everyone knew Victoria had chaired this event for the past 5 years. Her replacement by Maya as Ethan's +1 would be seen as the ultimate provocation. Maya traced the lettering with her finger, remembering how she used to help set up these events, arranging flowers and straightening tablecloths. Now she'd be seated at the main table. The thought made her stomach churn. Across town, Victoria sat in her hotel suite, surrounded by papers and photographs. Her laptop displayed Maya's complete background check, legally obtained through a private investigator. Her lips curved into a cruel smile as she rehearsed her speech for the gala. "Ladies and gentlemen," she practiced in front of her mirror, "as the founder of this event scholarship program, I feel compelled to share some disturbing information about the management of our charitable funds." She'd spent weeks building her case, gathering evidence of minor discrepancies in the household accounts during Maya's time as a housekeeper. Taken individually, they were nothing, a missing receipt here, a rounded number there. But woven together with innuendo and presented to the right audience. "It's not just about money," she told her reflection. "It's about trust, about who we allow into our circle." Meanwhile, Maya threw herself into gala preparations, reviewing seating charts and menu selections. She noticed her hands shaking as she signed vendor contracts she used to deliver to Victoria for signature. "The gold chargers, not the silver," she instructed the event coordinator, remembering Victoria's past complaints. "And please ensure the temperature is set at exactly 72 degrees. Mrs. Harrison gets cold easily." Ethan watched her from his office doorway. "You don't have to do all this yourself," he said softly. Maya jumped slightly, not having heard him approach. "I know these events matter to your donors. I want everything to be perfect." "Maya," Ethan stepped closer, concern evident in his voice. "Please," she interrupted, keeping her eyes on the contracts. "We need to maintain professional boundaries." The weekend before the gala, Maya finally allowed herself a break. She drove to her mother's small house in East Los Angeles, seeking comfort in familiar surroundings. Her mother was organizing old boxes in the garage. "Mija, look what I found," she called out, holding up a worn leather journal. "Your abuela's diary from when she first came to California." Maya took the journal carefully. Her grandmother had worked as a housekeeper for wealthy families in Beverly Hills, just like Maya had. She died when Maya was young, but her mother always said they shared the same fighting spirit. That night, curled up in her childhood bedroom, Maya began reading. "Today the lady of the house told me I don't belong here. Perhaps she is right. My hands are rough from work, not smooth like hers. But I hold my head high because my roughness comes from building a future. My daughters will have smooth hands, but they will inherit my strong spine. Tears rolled down Maya's cheeks as she read page after page of her grandmother's experiences. The racism, the dismissal, the constant pressure to be twice as good for half the recognition. It was all familiar. But there was also triumph in those pages, quiet victories won through persistence and dignity. On the last page, her grandmother had written, "They see our work as shame, but work is dignity. They think we serve them, but we serve our dreams. Let them underestimate us. It makes their surprise sweeter when we rise." Maya sat up until dawn, rereading passages and taking notes. As the sun rose, she opened her laptop and began drafting her own speech for the gala. Victoria might try to shame her background, but Maya would no longer hide it. In her hotel suite, Victoria received final confirmation of her speaking slot at the gala. Perfect timing, she told her co-conspirators. Right after the main course, when everyone's had just enough champagne to be receptive, but not so much they'll forget. She didn't know that Maya had spent the night finding her voice, or that Ethan had spent weeks gathering his own evidence about Victoria's past mismanagement of charitable funds. She didn't know that her carefully constructed plan was about to collide with a force she'd never understood. The power of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The gala was 3 days away, and the tension in Beverly Hills was palpable. The social elite chose sides, placed bets, and waited for what promised to be either a coronation or a crucifixion. The Beverly Hills Hotel's crystal ballroom sparkled under the chandeliers, a sea of designer gowns and black tuxedos filling the space. Maya arrived with Ethan, wearing a midnight blue gown that she'd carefully selected to be elegant but not flashy. Every eye in the room tracked their entrance, phones discreetly capturing photos that would be analyzed on social media within minutes. Victoria was already seated at a prominent table, wearing blood-red Valentino and a predatory smile. She positioned herself perfectly, close enough to the podium for dramatic effect, but far enough from Ethan and Maya's table to avoid direct interaction. During the first course, Maya felt the weight of hundreds of judgmental stares. She used her grandmother's advice, silently repeating, "Let them look. Your presence is not a performance for their entertainment." Ethan rose for his speech just after the main course. He buttoned his jacket, straightened his bow tie, and approached the podium with the confidence of a man who'd made peace with his decisions. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "Tonight, we're here to discuss the future of our community. But first, I want to talk about dignity." The room fell silent. This wasn't the usual charitable platitudes they'd expected. For years, we've gathered in rooms like this, congratulating ourselves on our generosity while ignoring the very people we claim to help. We've created a system that confuses wealth with worth, that mistakes inheritance for intelligence. Maya watched as several guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Victoria's smile remained fixed, but her knuckles whitened around her champagne glass. "I've been guilty of this myself," Ethan continued. "I've walked past people, brilliant, capable people, without seeing them, until one person showed me what true dignity looks like." Maya Rodriguez didn't just excel at her job. She excelled despite a system designed to keep her in her place. He turned to look directly at Maya, his voice softening. "She showed me that real class isn't about what you own, but about how you treat others. That true leadership isn't inherited with a trust fund. It's earned through character." Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "How touching," she called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What a beautiful fairy tale. But perhaps we should discuss the real story." She strode toward the podium, pulling papers from her clutch. Security hesitated, unsure whether to stop a former chairwoman of the event. "Did you tell them about the missing receipts, Maya?" Victoria's voice rang out. "About the convenient accounting errors during your time managing the household? Or should we discuss your mysterious meetings with certain board members?" The room erupted in whispers. Maya felt her heart racing, but kept her face composed, remembering her grandmother's words about dignity. "I have proof," Victoria continued, waving her papers. "Bank statements, security footage, witness testimonies. Our little Cinderella isn't quite as innocent as she appears. Ethan stepped forward, but Maya touched his arm, silently asking him to wait. She rose slowly, her movement drawing all eyes. "Mrs. Carter," she said, her voice clear and steady, "I welcome an investigation. In fact, I insist on it." Victoria faltered slightly, not expecting this response. "Call the police," Maya continued. "Let them examine every receipt, every transaction, every security tape. But let them examine all of them, including the ones from before my promotion." The room fell silent again as two uniformed officers entered the ballroom, responding to an anonymous call about financial impropriety. What Victoria didn't know was that Maya had spent weeks documenting everything, preparing for this moment. "Officers," Victoria said triumphantly, "I want to report a theft, embezzlement from charitable funds." As she handed over her evidence, Maya calmly opened her clutch and removed a USB drive. "Officers, you'll also want to review these records. They show every transaction from the past 5 years, including some interesting withdrawals made by Mrs. Carter to offshore accounts." Victoria's face drained of color. "You're lying. You can't prove anything." "Actually," Ethan interjected, "she can. And so can our forensic accountants, who've been reviewing everything for the past month." The police officers began taking statements as the gala guests watched in stunned silence. The social media posts started flying. "Police at Carter Gala. Victoria Carter makes accusations. Maya Rodriguez stands her ground." As Victoria was escorted to a private room for questioning, Maya remained at her table, back straight, chin up, embodying her grandmother's words about dignity. The night wasn't over, but something had shifted in the room. Respect, however grudging, had begun to replace speculation. The Beverly Hills Police Station's interview room was deliberately intimidating. Stark white walls, harsh fluorescent lighting, and a single metal table with 3 chairs. Maya sat perfectly straight, her evening gown incongruous against the utilitarian surroundings. 2 detectives faced her, their expressions carefully neutral. "Ms. Rodriguez," Detective Sarachin began, "we need to review your history with the Carter household." She spread photographs across the table, surveillance shots of Maya entering Ethan's office late at night, meeting with board members in cafes, carrying folders to her car. Maya looked at each photo calmly. Those late-night meetings were budget reviews. The board member meetings were about the Children's Hospital Fundraising Committee. Every folder, every document, every meeting is logged in the company records. Meanwhile, in another interview room, Ethan confronted Victoria. The years of their marriage seemed to dissolve as they stared at each other across a similar metal table. "Why, Victoria?" Ethan's voice was tired. "You had everything. Was your pride worth all this?" Victoria leaned forward, her dress wrinkled from hours of questioning. "Everything? I had nothing. You gave some maid more respect in 6 months than you gave me in 5 years. Because she earned it," Ethan shot back. "Every promotion, every responsibility, she earned it. You just expected things to be handed to you." Victoria's laugh was bitter. "Oh, please. Don't pretend this is about merit. I've seen how you look at her. Poor Ethan, falling for the help. How cliché." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "Speaking of cliché, would you like to hear something interesting?" She pressed play on a recording. Maya's voice filled the room. "Mr. Carter, please, we shouldn't." The recording was clearly edited, taken out of context, but suggestive enough to raise questions. Ethan's face darkened. "That's your evidence? A manipulated recording?" "It doesn't matter if it's real," Victoria smiled. "What matters is how it sounds. How it looks. You know how our world works, Ethan. Perception is reality." Back in her interview room, Maya faced increasingly pointed questions. Detective Chin slid another photo across the table. Maya and Ethan standing close together in his office, their faces inches apart. "Ms. Rodriguez, would you describe your relationship with Mr. Carter as purely professional?" Maya took a deep breath, remembering her grandmother's words about dignity. "My relationship with Mr. Carter is based on mutual respect and professional excellence. Any suggestion otherwise is an attempt to diminish my achievements and perpetuate harmful stereotypes about women of color in corporate positions." "And these bank transfers?" Detective Chin pushed several statements forward. Large sums moving between accounts just after your promotion? Those transfers, Maya replied, were part of the company's restructuring of the charitable foundation. Every transaction was approved by the board and documented by our accounting firm. I can provide emails confirming this. As the night wore on, Maya remained steady, answering each question with clarity and precision. She had spent years being underestimated, watching, learning, documenting. Now that preparation paid off as she systematically dismantled each accusation. In the other room, Victoria's composure began to crack as Ethan revealed his own evidence. Years of financial irregularities during her tenure, documented complaints from household staff, emails revealing her coordination with social media influencers to spread false stories. "You were so busy trying to destroy Maya," Ethan said quietly. "You never noticed her building a case against you. Every time you moved, she was 3 steps ahead." Victoria's face contorted with rage. "She's nobody. A servant who got lucky. How dare she try to take my place?" "That's where you're wrong," Ethan replied. "She never wanted your place. She created her own." Past midnight, Maya finally emerged from questioning. Her gown was wrinkled, her makeup slightly smudged, but her dignity remained intact. The detectives had found no evidence to support Victoria's accusations. Instead, they had opened an investigation into Victoria's handling of charitable funds. As Maya walked through the station, she held her head high. Officers and late-night staff watched her pass. This elegant woman in evening wear who had just spent hours dismantling a carefully orchestrated character assassination attempt. Outside, the press had gathered, tipped off about the drama at the gala. Maya faced the cameras without flinching, making a brief statement. "I stand by my work, my integrity, and my right to be judged by my actions rather than assumptions." No further comments. The following morning, every major news outlet in Los Angeles carried the story. Security footage from the police station showed Maya leaving with perfect composure while Victoria was escorted out the back entrance, trying to shield her face from cameras. The contrast couldn't have been more striking. In the ICE evidence room, forensic audio specialists analyzed Victoria's recording. It took them less than an hour to confirm extensive manipulation. The original clip, recovered from the mansion security system, revealed the full context. Maya declining an offer to attend a private dinner with potential investors, citing professional boundaries. "The editing is amateur," the lead technician reported. Multiple clips spliced together, background noise artificially removed. Whoever did this wanted it to sound intimate, but didn't have the skills to make it convincing. The revelation spread through Beverly Hills social circles like wildfire. Claire Harrison, who had been one of Victoria's strongest allies, called an emergency meeting of the hospital board. "Ladies," she addressed the room, "we've been played for fools. Victoria used our prejudices against us, and we nearly destroyed an innocent woman's reputation." She paused, looking around the table. "It's time to make this right." Across town, Ethan sat in his study, reviewing the complete police report. His lawyers had already begun proceedings to file charges against Victoria for attempted defamation and financial misconduct. The evidence was damning. Years of misappropriated charitable funds, systematic harassment, and coordinated social media manipulation. Maya arrived at the office to find her inbox flooded with apologies and invitations. The same social circle that had shunned her now scrambled to make amends. She archived them all, focusing instead on preparing for the afternoon's board meeting. Victoria, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage, made one last attempt at damage control. She called a press conference at her hotel, but the turnout was sparse. Her usual supporters were conspicuously absent. "This is all a misunderstanding," she began, her voice slightly trembling. "I only wanted to protect the charitable foundation that I've dedicated years to dash." She was interrupted by breaking news alerts on everyone's phones. The police had just released details of their investigation, including evidence that Victoria had diverted over $2 million in charitable donations to personal accounts over the past 5 years. In the Carter Industries boardroom, Maya presented her findings on the foundation's finances. Under Mrs. Carter's management, administrative costs consumed 60% of donations. "Our new structure reduces that to 15%, meaning more money actually reaches the children we claim to help. Harrison Wells, once her harshest critic, spoke first. Ms. Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. Your work here is exemplary. The social tide turned completely when Janet Wells hosted an emergency meeting of the hospital's charitable foundation. We need to address the damage Victoria has done, she announced to the assembled socialites. And we need to acknowledge that we were complicit in her behavior. By evening, Victoria's carefully constructed world had completely unraveled. Her social media accounts went dark. Her club memberships were suspended pending investigation. Former friends denied knowing about her schemes, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal. Ethan called a private meeting with his lawyers to sever the last remaining ties to Victoria. As they reviewed the documentation, he felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. Make sure the press release emphasizes that all recovered funds will be returned to the charitable foundation, he instructed. And add that Maya Rodriguez will oversee the restructuring of the foundation's management. Later that night, Maya sat alone in her office, reading messages from young women of color in the business community. They called her an inspiration, thanked her for standing her ground, shared their own stories of prejudice and perseverance. A knock at her door revealed Ethan, holding 2 cups of coffee, just like that first night when everything began to change. The board voted unanimously to appoint you as executive director. Tour of the foundation, he said, setting her coffee down. Though I suspect that's not the most important thing that happened today. Maya smiled, thinking of her grandmother's diary. Today showed that truth doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it needs to roar. The Harvard Business School auditorium was packed, students spilling into the aisles. Maya stood at the podium, her poised presence commanding attention as she delivered her keynote speech on diversity in corporate leadership. Success isn't about fitting into spaces designed to exclude you, she said, her voice carrying to the back row. It's about having the courage to reshape those spaces entirely. The audience hung on every word, many taking notes furiously. After her speech, a line of young women waited to speak with her. One student, tears in her eyes, clutched Maya's recently published article from Forbes, Breaking the Glass Ceiling: How Merit Transcends Prejudice. Meanwhile, in a small Parisian cafe, Victoria sat alone, scrolling through news coverage of Maya's speaking tour. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped irritably against her phone screen as she read headline after headline. Maya Rodriguez. From housekeeper to corporate pioneer, Carter Industries Foundation sets new standards in charitable giving, breaking barriers. How one woman changed Beverly Hills' social landscape. Victoria's exile had been comfortable but lonely. Her frozen assets meant living on a fraction of her former wealth, though she'd managed to secret away enough to maintain a semblance of her previous lifestyle. But the isolation ate at her. Former friends' calls went unreturned. Party invitations dried up. Her social media following had plummeted. "Madam would like another coffee?" the waiter asked in French. "No," she replied, switching to a previous tab on her phone. It showed an email from an old contact at the Los Angeles Times. Someone who owed her a favor and might be interested in some overlooked details about Maya's past. Back in Beverly Hills, Ethan waited in his car outside the airport, watching for Maya's return flight from Boston. In the months since the Gala incident, their relationship had evolved into something deeper than professional respect, but remained carefully undefined. As Maya approached his car, Ethan felt a familiar flutter in his chest. She looked tired but energized, clutching her laptop bag and rolling suitcase. "The speech went viral," he said as she settled into the passenger seat. "Over 1 million views already." Maya smiled, but her expression held concern. "I saw some comments from Victoria on the video. She's been more active online lately." Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "She's been reaching out to old contacts. Our security team flagged several suspicious emails." "I know," Maya sighed. "She's trying to dig up information about my father." The air in the car grew heavy with unspoken tension. Maya's father's disappearance years ago remained a mystery, one that Victoria somehow thought she could weaponize. Later that evening, in Maya's office at the foundation, she and Ethan reviewed upcoming projects. The space had been transformed from Victoria's former domain into something both professional and welcoming. Photos of scholarship recipients line the walls alongside financial reports and achievement certificates. The new mentorship program launches next month, Maya said, pulling up a presentation. We've already got 30 corporate partners committed. Ethan watched her as she spoke, admiring how she turned adversity into opportunity. The foundation under her leadership had become a genuine force for change, not just a tax write-off for the wealthy. Their hands brushed as they both reached for the same document. This time, neither pulled away immediately. The attraction between them had grown stronger, but both understood the complications it would bring. Maya, Ethan started, his voice soft. I know, she replied, LLY quiet. But we can't. Not yet. There's too much at stake. In Paris, Victoria finally received the response she'd been waiting for. Her contact had found something, a connection between Maya's father and Ethan's past that could change everything. Time to come home, she murmured to herself, booking a flight to Los Angeles. That night, Maya dreamed of her grandmother again. In the dream, she was reading from her diary. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with fists or words, but with the quiet dignity of living your truth. She woke to multiple missed calls from unknown numbers and a text from Ethan. We need to talk. Victoria's coming back. The Children's Hospital fundraiser transformed the Beverly Wilshire's Grand Ballroom into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Under Maya's direction, the event had evolved from a simple gala into a celebration of actual achievement. Scholarship recipients shared the spotlight with donors, and corporate pledges were tied to measurable outcomes. No one saw Victoria enter. She appeared suddenly at the podium during Maya's opening speech, her designer dress and immaculate makeup a stark contrast to her slightly wild eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria's voice cut through the stunned silence. I think it's time we all learn the truth about Maya Rodriguez. Security moved forward, but Victoria raised her hand. Before you remove me, you might want to hear about James Carter. The name hit the room like a thunderbolt. James Carter, Ethan's former business partner, had vanished 15 years ago amid rumors of embezzlement and fraud. The case had never been solved. Ethan stood frozen, his face pale. Maya gripped the edge of her chair, her knuckles white. It's fascinating what money can uncover, Victoria continued, her voice carrying across the silent room. Like the fact that our dear Maya's father, who mysteriously disappeared when she was a child, worked as James Carter's personal driver. Whispers erupted throughout the ballroom. Maya felt hundreds of eyes turned toward her. But here's the real twist, Victoria smiled triumphantly. The day James Carter disappeared, Maya's father vanished too. And just 3 days before, a substantial sum of money was transferred to an account in his name. Ethan started to speak, but Victoria pressed on. So tell us, Maya, did your father help James Carter steal millions from this company? Is that why you were so eager to work here? To cover old tracks? Maya rose slowly from her seat. The room held its breath, waiting for denial or confession. Instead, she walked deliberately to the podium, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Yes, she said simply. My father did work for James Carter. The admission sent shockwaves through the crowd. Victoria's smile widened. But, Maya continued, her voice steady, what Mrs. Carter doesn't know, what her expensive investigators couldn't discover, is that my father didn't disappear. He died. She reached in her clutch and withdrew an old envelope. He died trying to stop James Carter from leaving the country with stolen money. The police sealed the case to protect their investigation, but I've carried this letter for 15 years. The letter, when read aloud, revealed the truth. Maya's father had discovered James Carter's scheme and attempted to prevent his escape. In the ensuing confrontation, both men had been killed. The case was sealed to protect both families from scandal. I didn't come here seeking revenge or justice, Maya said, looking directly at Ethan. I came because this company represented everything my father believed in before James Carter corrupted it. I wanted to honor his memory by helping restore its integrity. Ethan walked to the podium, taking Maya's hand in full view of everyone. I knew, he said quietly, but his microphone carried the words. I learned the truth months ago. Maya's father was a hero who died trying to protect this company. Victoria stood speechless, her weapon of destruction transformed into a testament of honor. The money you found? Maya addressed Victoria directly. It was compensation to my family from the company's insurance, payment for my father's sacrifice. I used it to put myself through college while working as a housekeeper to support my mother. The room erupted in applause. Victoria fled the stage, her final attempt at revenge backfiring completely. As she rushed toward the exit, she passed table after table of people standing to applaud Maya. Later that night, in the quiet of Ethan's office, Maya and Ethan finally allowed themselves to acknowledge what had been growing between them. "No more secrets," Ethan said softly. "No more waiting." Maya thought of her grandmother's diary, of dignity and dreams, of battles fought and won. "No more hiding," she agreed. Outside, Beverly Hills continued its glittering existence, but something fundamental had shifted. A new order had emerged. One where worth was measured by character rather than charity galas, where dignity trumped social status, and where love could bridge any divide. Victoria's revelations, meant to destroy, had instead completed Maya's transformation from outsider to legend. Her story would be told in boardrooms and ballrooms for years to come, not as a scandal, but as an inspiration. The end of the story marked the beginning of something new, a future where the true measure of wealth lay not in what you owned, but in what you dared to become.